Seve was beyond belief. I mean, he was like an artist. If you put him in trouble, he'd hit these miraculous shots.
He'd be moving around a lot, was always, and he wanted to dominate.
I saw him at Augusta when he pulled his 3-wood second shot into woods on the left. I heard a crack and I turned around and he's holding his jaw. It drew blood. He punched himself that hard. He wants to win.
He might hit some wild shots, but he could also hit spectacular straight shots.
I mean, he hit it a long way, as Butch was saying, but he really didn't change his swing. And I think his mentality was such that, he wouldn't allow himself to make change. He wasn't a mechanical type game.
How good was Seve Ballesteros, really? Even the greatest legends could not agree. Paul Azinger saw a mind gamer, Gary Player saw a swing that should never work. Tiger Woods saw pure genius, Lee Trevino saw hands like a surgeon, Curtis Strange saw the man who changed golf forever, but all of them had to explain the contradiction. This is what happens when 6 legends talk about the Matador. They reveal a player impossible to understand in any simple way. By the way, if you are enjoying this Seve story, tap the hype feature and give this video some hype. It really helps the channel. Number 1. Curtis Strange on the Ryder Cup. Before the mid-1980s, the Ryder Cup barely mattered. American players did not care much about it. It felt like an exhibition, not a real battle. Strange admitted that early in his career, nobody thought it was important. The British and Irish teams lost constantly. There was no energy, no drama, no real interest in America. The event was considered a glorified exhibition, a friendly competition between sides, not a serious war. Then something shifted dramatically. Strange recalls hearing roars coming from the Europeans, then roars from the Americans, and suddenly Europe was winning matches. The Americans were getting beaten on their own soil in a way they never expected. Something fundamental had changed. The intensity was different. The passion was different. Strange looked around and wondered what made such a big difference. The answer was definitely Seve. Curtis Strange credits Seve with single-handedly reviving the Ryder Cup. One man changed a global sporting event. Seve did not just win points. He transformed it from a gentleman's match into a crusade for respect. He made his teammates believe they could beat America. He made it about manhood, not money. He gave the event a soul. Strange said that while others helped, nobody brought passion like Seve. When Tony Jacklin captained Europe, he set up the organization. But Seve brought the fire. Almost single-handedly, Seve made the Ryder Cup the fiercest rivalry in golf. By making it the most intense place in golf, Seve raised the stakes for everyone. This was his greatest gift to all golf. Not a swing technique, not a trophy, a feeling that golf could matter in a deeper way. Number 2. Lee Trevino on Seve's short game. Trevino and Seve came from very different worlds. Trevino came from poverty in Texas. Seve came from farming stock in Spain. But they spoke the same language of golf. They both played by feel and intuition. They both understood that golf was fundamentally about the final score, not the pretty swing or the perfect mechanics. That was their philosophy. Trevino gave Seve one of golf's greatest compliments. He said Seve had hands like a surgeon. This comparison is precise and meaningful. A surgeon works in tight spaces with delicate precision and total control. A surgeon can navigate difficult terrain. Trevino saw these exact same qualities in Seve's short game. Seve's driving was violent and wild and unpredictable, but his chipping was forensic and exact and beautiful. Trevino marveled at how Seve could flip a switch instantly from slashing a driver all over the course to using feather-light touch with a delicate lob wedge. Trevino broke down Seve's short game method, called Ride the Pony. Seve would splay his feet at 45 degrees to the target line, drive his knees toward his toes, squat down low to the ground, lower his hands significantly, and slide the club head under the ball with perfect technique. This was not luck or improvisation. This was a highly developed technique that showed there was genuine method behind the apparent magic. It was a system that worked. The most famous example came at the 1979 Open Championship at Royal Lytham and St. Anne's, a truly historic moment. On hole 16 of the final round, Seve drove his ball into a temporary car park. This was asphalt, not grass. Most players would take a penalty or chip out to the fairway nervously. Seve played directly from asphalt without hesitation, hit it onto the green with perfect contact, and made birdie. To Trevino, it did not matter how you get there. It only matters that you get there. That was the scorecard philosophy that both men shared and respected deeply. Trevino summed up Seve's competitive mindset perfectly and directly. He said, "I look into their eyes and shake their hand, but I am thinking I am going to bury you right now." That is how Seve played too. Behind those surgeon hands lay the mind of a killer who wanted to win at all costs and would do anything to achieve victory. Number 3. Tiger Woods on Seve's creativity. Tiger burst onto the scene just as Seve's light was fading, but Tiger is perhaps the only player who possessed a short game and recovery ability comparable to Seve's. Tiger looked at Seve and saw a kindred spirit. A genius who understood golf was not about the swing. It was about the score. Tiger called Seve the most creative and talented player ever to live in golf. When Seve died, Tiger said, "His creativity and inventiveness on the golf course may never be surpassed by anybody. This superlative from Tiger carries tremendous weight. It matters coming from someone who is considered the greatest golfer ever. Yet Tiger said that while he may have surpassed Sev's records and statistics, he believed he never surpassed his imagination and creativity. Tiger specifically cited Sev's ability to turn a disaster into a birdie as unparalleled in golf. This resilience and magic is what Tiger built his own legend on. Tiger knew about miraculous recoveries and comeback wins, but Sev invented the entire concept and wrote the book on it. During practice rounds at Augusta National, Tiger recalled Seve explaining the short game with clarity and artistry. Tiger said, just the spin and how much spin you need, and where to land it, and what you need to do with your body to do that with your hands. Every detail mattered. Tiger observed something critical that directly contradicted players' assessment. He said he looked like he did not try to do anything mechanical. He just understood it. It was pure understanding. Tiger remembered a specific moment at Torrey Pines that illustrates this perfectly and clearly. Seve faced a challenging par 3 hole with a tucked pin location. He pulled a 3-iron, which was too long for that yardage, but Sev knew exactly what he was doing. He hit a huge rounded slice that started miles left, curved gracefully through the air, landed softly on the green, and spun sideways toward the hole. To Tiger, this shot is physically illogical by normal standards. A 3-iron should produce low trajectory and run along the ground, but Sev manipulated it to float and stop. This is inventiveness. Sev did not play the course as it was designed by the architects. He played it as he imagined it in his mind. Number 4. Dean Beman on his war with Seve. While Azinger fought Seve on the grass and Player fought him in theory, Beman fought him in the boardroom. Beman was the architect of the modern, commercially dominant American tour. He was a man of strict rules and contracts and sponsor obligations. Sev was a man of freedom and European loyalty and his own independence. Their collision was absolutely inevitable given their different philosophies. The conflict centered on the PGA Tour's requirement that voting members play a minimum of 15 events per season. For American players, this was normal and routine. For Seve, who was deeply committed to the European Tour and in high demand for appearance fees globally, this was a shackle that limited his freedom and choices. Seve argued that he deserved an exemption or reduced minimum. His presence in any U.S. event enriched the tour, he believed. He should not be forced to play minor events just to hit a quota. Beman refused to bend or negotiate. He believed that making exceptions would undermine the integrity of the tour's regulations and set bad precedent. In 1986, Ballesteros failed to meet the 15-event minimum. Beman suspended Seve from the PGA Tour. The commissioner of the world's richest tour banned the world's most exciting player. Sev had just won the Masters twice in the preceding years, which made the decision even more controversial and shocking. Sev's reaction was visceral. He took it as personal insult. He said, Dean Beman is a little man who wants to be big. He dismissed Beman entirely. He said, let's forget Dean Beman. The Masters is more important than Dean Beman. By invoking the Masters, Sev positioned himself as a champion of golf's traditions against petty bureaucracy. But Beman's hardline stance inadvertently fueled the world versus Seve narrative. Seve used the ban as fuel. He convinced himself and his European teammates that America was out to destroy them. This narrative became fuel for the European resurgence in the Ryder Cup. Every match won against an American was a rebuke of Beman's authority. By alienating Seve, Beman unintentionally consolidated European resistance. He turned golfers into a unified army led by a martyr. Number 5. Gary Player on Seve's swing. Player's approach was scientific, disciplined, and mechanical. He believed the golf swing was an equation to be solved. Seve was an improvisational artist. Player's assessment was scathing. He said, do you know who knew the least about the golf swing? Ballesteros. When he played with young Ballesteros at Troon, the Spaniard was not even a 10 handicap in ball striking. A devastating critique from Player. Player called Sev's swing slashy, which means something very specific. Steep angle of attack, no fluid transition, violent hand-dependent release through the ball. That is slashy. Sev's driving was wild and all over the place on the golf course. He had a long, loose backswing where the club crossed parallel at the top of the swing. He dipped his head significantly during the backswing. He relied on extraordinary hand-eye coordination to square the club face at impact. To Player, a technician who valued geometric precision, it looked like a high-wire act performed without a safety net. Player predicted such a fundamentally flawed swing could not sustain itself over a long career. That came true when Seve's long game deteriorated in his late 30s, exactly as Player had predicted based on his technical analysis. But Player delivered the ultimate paradox. He said Seve's wild driving would have made him a high handicapper, if not for his short game. This is one of golf's greatest backhanded compliments. Sev was effectively an amateur from tee to 100 yards, but he was the greatest player in history from 100 yards to the hole. Player's reverence for Sev's feel balanced his disdain for mechanics. Player admitted he had the greatest feel of any man that ever lived. Sev's ability inside 50 yards was as good as anybody ever lived. This duality is fascinating. Player represented the science of golf: control, predictability, fairways, greens. Sev represented the art of golf: chaos, recovery, imagination, will. Player concluded, I do not know who the best is, but he was as good as anybody. The swing was wrong. The score was right. Number 6. Paul Azinger on gamesmanship. The Azinger-Ballesteros relationship is the definitive study of antagonism in modern golf history. This was a clash of cultures and fundamentally different interpretations of the spirit of the game. Azinger was the American collegiate system: gritty, tenacious, fiercely patriotic. Seva was street-fighting genius from Pedreña in Spain. Azinger viewed golf through a lens of rigid procedural fairness. Seve viewed it as total psychological war where every advantage matters. Azinger called Seve the king of gamesmanship. Not a compliment, an indictment. Ballesteros systematically eroded golf's gentlemanly compact to gain small advantages. Azinger cited strategic coughing and jingling coins during backswings as weapons. In high-stakes golf, a cough is not a reflex. It is a sonic projectile designed to disrupt concentration. But Seve had a defense that reveals his philosophy. He said cheating and breaking the rules are two different things. To Americans, this was contradictory or immoral. To Seve, it was logical distinction. Cheating meant altering physical reality of the game. Gamesmanship was psychological leverage. If the rulebook did not forbid a cough, it was permissible in his mind. Their feud began at the 1989 Ryder Cup at the Belfry. Ballesteros claimed his ball was cut. Azinger demanded inspection to challenge him. The referee sided with Azinger, humiliating the proud Spaniard publicly. On hole 18, Azinger drove into water. The drop he took seemed questionable to Seve, who had watched carefully. The irony was bitter. Azinger, crusader against Seve's gamesmanship, now benefited from generous interpretation. Seve was shaken emotionally. He hit his ball into water and lost the match. The 1991 war on the shore was open combat and total war. On hole 7, Ballesteros noticed the Americans had switched ball types, violating the one-ball rule. Seve did not point it out immediately on the tee. He waited patiently. He held their infraction as leverage like a weapon. When adjudicated, the Americans were flustered and shocked. Azinger said, "We made a mistake, but we certainly were not cheating intentionally." Seve's response was legendary and memorable. He said, cheating and breaking the rules are two different things. By refusing to absolve them, Seve occupied the moral high ground. The Americans lost the match. Despite these intense clashes, time softened Azinger's perspective. He acknowledged Seve's antics were driven by deep patriotism. Seve was the most passionate and patriotic opponent Azinger faced. Azinger recognized Seve carried an entire continent on his shoulders. The gamesmanship was a desperate attempt to level the playing field against better-funded American squads. Azinger even noted, "I loved Seve. It is tragic that he is gone." While Azinger hated the opponent, he revered the man. Now we see the full picture clearly. He was a rule bender, a mind gamer, a technical mess according to his critics. Yet the greatest names in golf history describe Seve with awe and respect. Trevino called him a surgeon with hands. Woods called him a creative genius. Strange called him the savior of the Ryder Cup. Beeman saw him as an institutional disruptor. The contradiction is the fundamental point. His critics said his swing looked wrong and incorrect. His results said it was perfect and superior. His opponents said he cheated. The rulebook said he played within the lines. His supporters said he was a technical disaster. His scorecard said he was a 5-time major champion who won consistently. Seve made golf argue about what greatness even means. Is it perfection or results? Is it the process or the outcome? Is it following the rules or winning matches? Seve proved that imagination and courage can beat technical perfection. He proved you do not need a textbook swing to win 5 major championships. He changed how golf felt to people. He changed the Ryder Cup from a sleepy exhibition into a passionate crusade. Young European players saw Seve and realized they could stand toe-to-toe with America. The Matador made golf argue with itself about its own identity. He forced the rules committee to write new rules to stop what he was doing. He forced the commissioner to ban him. He forced American players to sharpen their psychological game and mindset. In the end, all 6 golf legends agree on one thing. You could not stop Sev, you could beat him in matches, you could criticize him, you could investigate his ball, you could suspend him completely, but you could not stop him from being truly great. You could not stop thinking about him long after forever. That is how good Seve Ballesteros really was. If this video about golf's greatest legends resonated with you and you enjoyed this deep research content, like it, subscribe to the channel, and comment what you think about Seve's legacy. The hype feature really helps us create more deep research content like this for you. Thank you for watching and being part of our community.